Today I am going to show you how you can do an overlay or add in Photoshop an image to a t-shirt and make it look even more realistic, especially if the t-shirt has wrinkles on it. For my mock-ups, I tried to keep the area where you usually put your print pretty flat, and I didn't want it completely flat because that's going to look really fake and not going to have a lot of interest to it, but even so, I am going to show you this example even with wrinkles on it. I'm actually going to show you how, if you wanted to show an image at the bottom of the shirt here where there are a lot more wrinkles, how you could do that and make it look more realistic, because it's going to follow those peaks and valleys of the shirt. So here we go. Hopefully it makes sense here, and feel free to follow along. To start, I have my little graphic that I'm going to add to it. It's a smart object. I just pasted it in there. But we're going to ignore that for a minute because we're going to work on something else first. The way we're going to make this look more realistic is by creating a map of the shirt, a gradient map. So the way that it will work is the highlights, the whites, the true whites, will be the highest point, because as the light's coming, it's hitting that high point. And the darks are going to be the low point. And so we're going to map the height of the shirt by just taking it down to highlights, lowlights, and neutrals. And I'll show you how you do that. It's a little confusing, I know. Bear with me. All right, so I'm on my Mac, Control and click on my background layer, and I'm going to say duplicate layer. I want to do this actually as a separate document, so I'm going to go New, and I'm going to name it. So this one's going to be Flow Blue, because that's the name of the color of this comfort color shirt. And I'm going to say Distortion Map, because we're going to be distorting our image that we're overlaying on top of the shirt to follow those peaks and valleys. And okay, and it's going to open up into a copy of that shirt. Okay, so now is how we're going to create that distortion map. So I'm going to just go up to, I'm going to go to Image up top and Adjustments, and I'm going to turn this into a black and white image first, because we're just dealing with true whites, true blacks, and everything in between. So black and white, and I'm going to actually come over here. I don't love the default, so I'm in my brain and I'm thinking my neutrals, my mid-tone grays should be kind of a medium gray, and that should represent the middle of the shirt, not the low points, not the high points. So I'm gonna let's try a little lighter maybe. So as I'm looking kind of my mid grays here, that's the midpoint of the shirt. The high point of the shirt here is my highlights. That looks pretty good. So we want to work in grayscale just so we're simplifying the tones to just highs and lows. And then from here, I actually want to increase my contrast. So I'm going to go back to Adjustments, and I'm going to go to my Levels, and I'm just going to pull my blacks towards the middle. So my black, I want some true blacks in the low points, and I want some true whites or close to that in the high points. I really just want to make this a very contrasty image. And the middle should be like a middle gray. And when we're making this map and when we're distorting it, anything that's at like middle gray, 50% gray, won't do anything. And then the highest whites will move in one direction, the darkest darks will move in the opposite direction. So I'll show you. This looks pretty good. I feel like I might want more. Cool. Okay, so we could just go straight from here, but as you zoom in, you can see some of the transition from dark to light is very harsh, which means that the distortion is going to be very harsh, and we don't really want that. So instead, now I'm just going to go to Filter, and I'm going to go Blur, and I'm going to go Gaussian Blur. And that's probably too blurry. I just want to blur it enough that those transitions don't look really, really harsh, because I don't want any sharp lines and sharp jolts on there. So that looks pretty good. All right, now I'm gonna save as, and we're gonna save it as a Photoshop file. And remember where you store it. I'm just putting it on my desktop for now. And we're gonna, this Flow Blue Distortion Map is this one. I've been doing a bunch of these, and so I have to remember. Flow Blue Distortion Map. All right, and we can close that out. Back to our image. So again, we have, this is what we're adding on. And you know what? If you were to just pop this down on here, that looks great. That looks pretty realistic. I probably wouldn't go through the trouble up here of doing anything else because that looks pretty darn good. But as you pull it down, where there's more wrinkles, you really can see that it's just sitting on top of the image, right? Because it doesn't follow those folds at all. So now is where we're gonna work on distorting it. So I'm gonna select our image here, and then we're gonna go up to Filter, and we're gonna go to Distort, and the type of distortion that we're using is the Displace. So select Displace, and now to get to what we're actually doing here, this is telling me horizontal scale and vertical scale. So the maximum shifting or distortion, 10 pixels, right? In each direction, horizontal and vertical. So let's say my true whites are gonna distort 10 pixels up and to the left, and my true darks are gonna distort 10 pixels down and to the right. So it's gonna be distorting and shifting based on the mapping that we made. So I've found that 10 is a pretty good scale for the size of images that I'm working with, but I've played with this a bunch and that's just what I like. The bigger the number you put, the more pixels you're distorting it up and down, the more distortion you're gonna get. And then we're gonna select Wrap Around and Stretch to Fit and embed file data in Smart Object. So I'm gonna press OK. Now this is where we're gonna pick the one we just made. So Flow Blue Distortion Map, there she is. And we're just gonna let it displace. Now you might have seen that just happen. If not, I can show you, I can toggle off and on. So this is why I made it a smart object, so I can toggle this off and on and show you. You don't have to make it a smart object, you just won't have the option to toggle off and on. So you see my image, and you can see that it's a little distorted. So in my highlights, it's taken the image up and to the right just a bit, and in the shadows, down, opposite, up and to the left, down and to the right. And so it's just distorted this image just based on the map that we made of the highs and lows, the peaks and the valleys. I hope that makes sense. So let's take a look. Let's zoom in. And it does look like it's part of the shirt a little more. It sort of, see how it sort of flows with the shirt here? And you can play with the, I don't like that. You can play with what type or what kind that you're, of layer that you're using here. Hard light, vivid light, soft light. Some of those sometimes will let the texture of the shirt come through a little more. Overlay is great, except it doesn't, I don't love that you can see so much color through it. So I'm not gonna go with overlay. It does look really neat though. So I think I'm gonna stick with, I'm gonna go pin light. So that's just, okay. And then I'm gonna change the opacity just slightly. So you can see the bit of the shirt coming through. And I think that this looks pretty good. And as you're looking at it, it looks like it's a picture of the image actually printed on the shirt, even though the shirt is wrinkly, it kind of flows. And then I'm gonna toggle off and on so you can kind of see it, how that follows the shirt. So this is normal, and see how that just kind of follows the flow and the movement of the shirt. So I hope that works for you. It's another step that you can take to just make your mock-ups look a little bit more realistic, especially with a wrinkly shirt. Good luck!